What's up guys, Johnny Chase here and welcome back to the club, and today I want to talk about NES and Famicom games. Specifically, when a Japanese developer creates a game, ports it to the US, and there are major differences. Now I'm not talking about obviously translation differences where there's got dialogue in Japanese and it has to be translated for a Western audience, but I'm talking about like just major differences, whether it be for the graphics, level design, and in most cases, difficulty. So I was actually inspired to do this from recent playthroughs I've done on various streams, and also by a video by Matt McMuscles on his gameplay channel, Flophouse Plays. And that's the game I'm going to start off with today. Now, if you enjoy stuff like this, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and click the bell for notifications. So I got to try to bring more of these 5 lists to you every single week. So first off, I'm going to start with the game that actually inspired me to do this. It was one that Matt McMuscles played again on his Flophouse Plays. It's Mad City versus The Adventures of Bayou Billy. So both of these were developed by Konami, and I didn't know that there actually was that big of a difference between the two games. When I saw the video, Matt explained that Mad City is easier than Bayou Billy, and I think it has to do with the fact that it comes from that generation of games where Nintendo of America really didn't want easy NES games for kids to have, because if they went and got it, then they would go and return it, or they would be done with it, right? I think it was to curve more of the rental program that was going on in the United States. You got places like Blockbuster and mom and pop shops that were buying up games, renting them out. Why buy a full price game when you could just rent it, beat it, and return it? So I think that in some cases that's why they artificially inflated the difficulty. I mean, the difference between Mad City and Bayou Billy is night and day. Now, first off, when you look, 2 of the Bayou levels are actually in reverse. So you've got stage 1 is stage 3, and stage 3 is stage 1. The gun level is still the same, and then everything else pretty much looks the same. But they changed some of the colors around for some of the enemies, and if you can also tell, like, it doesn't take you that long to kill enemies in this game versus it does in Bayou Billy. I think they upped the hit points in Bayou Billy versus what it was in Mad City. Now, what's funny is that I actually had no intention of playing Mad City for that long. I just needed enough B-roll footage for this video. I ended up beating the game. It's actually way easier than Bayou Billy, and it's really short. I think I beat it in under like 30 minutes, which, back then, when you're younger, you look at all these old NES games, from a child's eye, you had hours of fun because you didn't know the ins and outs, or I guess you didn't have the reflexes like you do as an adult playing all these games now. And I breezed through this no problem. I mean, when I switched over to Bayou Billy, oh man, was it a struggle. Well, first off there, I put on the wrong game mode. I ended up the second level and it asked me to use the zapper. And I was like, no, I need the game mode that actually uses the cursor. I'm sure the zapper would have been fine, but I'm emulating, so I don't have a proper zapper, and my mouse is way too finicky to use as a zapper on this emulator. So, but yeah, if you've ever wanted to see the later levels of Bayou Billy and just can't, make sure to check out Mad City for the Famicom. There are some translation patches that you can get online if you want the original dialogue from Bayou Billy and just import that into Mad City. One of the other things I should notice too is that the title screen, it does that Metal Gear where the title screen only stays on for like the fraction of a second, and then the track mode starts, the demo starts. And it's like you boot it up, it's like Mad City, you've got like a fraction of a second to hit start or game A, game B, and it just goes into the demo. It's the same thing it does in the OG Metal Gear on NES, so watch out for that. But yeah, again, if you've ever had struggles with Bayou Billy and you wanted to beat it without a Game Genie or Game Shark, go check out Mad City for the Famicom. Okay, so if you guys didn't know already and you're new to the channel, one of my all-time favorite NES games, and probably one of my favorite games of all time, is Bionic Commando on the NES. Case in point, I did a video where I played every single Bionic Commando game ever made, from the OG arcade all the way up to Rearm 2. I basically played them all in release order. Go check out that massive 10-hour video up in the corner in the card here. So whenever we play Bionic Commando, you always notice that the ultimate plan is for them to create this weapon called the Albatross, and it was made from the old documents of a group called the Bads, and they're resurrecting their leader, and kind of looks like this guy, right? And I was like, man, like these, I don't think these are really called the Bads. I think they're called Nazis. And sure enough, once I got the internet and dug into the history of the game, I found out that, you know, it's not called Bionic Commando in Japan. It's called Hitler no Fukatsu, Top Secret. Now, one of the major differences, obviously, is that, you know, standards and practices and, you know, Nintendo seal of quality. I don't think a Nintendo game would have sold well with swastikas all over the place. So obviously they had to censor that. They're not called Nazis, they're called the Bads. But then the changes don't stop there. They technically made the Bionic Commando game on NES a little bit harder. They've, you know, removed some 1-ups from the area, so it was a little bit harder to obtain 1-ups in the game. Now, if you're an aficionado like me, you know that if you want to survive in that and you run out of lives, just go after those jeeps, kill some of the mini bosses there, and you've got some continues to go off of. But not only that, they made a lot of level design changes as well. There are several areas where there was like elevators and like the broken elevators that throw you down the shaft. They're just completely missing altogether. There are areas where you have to knock out boulders with your bionic arm to progress. That's kind of a cool thing that they actually brought back in Bionic Commando Rearmed, the HD remake on 360, PS3, and PC back in the day. And also, one of the other things I noticed too, and I don't know if this was a glitch for the NES version or if I'm just doing something wrong. In Area 15, where you actually fly down and you see the leader of the group, and it's in a neutral zone, so you're not allowed to shoot or kill him, and he's just kind of walking over the place. There's this little barrier that's upward, and if you have the 3-way shot, you can actually shoot and that barrier comes down and you can get the other item that's in there, which I think is like the last communications you need for the remaining areas. But in the Famicom version, it doesn't work. Like the wall stays up there. Now it does alert all the guards to your presence, but doesn't move the needles. It doesn't move you afterwards. So I have no idea how to actually take that down. I've never actually done a full playthrough of Hitler no Fukatsu, so that's something I actually might have to remedy. And also too, I like to get translation patch and see if maybe some things were mistranslated. Maybe Master G still calls you a damn fool when you try to go up against him. Hey, maybe the death animation is even more gruesome when you shoot him in the face with a bazooka. Yeah, I think there's enough differences in Hitler no Fukatsu Top Secret versus Bionic Commando that you should definitely give it a shot if you're ever curious about the history of this game as well. Now, us retro aficionados, I think we can all agree that Ninja Gaiden is probably one of the hardest games to play on the NES. It's one of the hardest games to beat on the NES, about how painstakingly difficult, especially the last area is to beat, especially that 3E phase of the boss, and every time you die it kicks you back to stage 6-1. Now recently I went through on the secondary channel I host, Game Days for Good, over on Twitch and YouTube. We do live streams and we raise money for charity, and I ended up doing Ninja Gaiden 1, and then I got the hankering to beat Ninja Gaiden 2, which, while that was difficult too, I found that to be a little bit easier. Now for Ninja Gaiden 3, I already knew the tales of you only get 5 continues and that's it. It's game over. There's no infinite continues. There's no nothing. So that's why I decided, and I put it to an audience vote. Would you rather me see me do the Famicom version, because I know that one at least has unlimited continues? And they said yeah. So we've got Ninja Gaiden 3 versus Ninja Raidoken 3. So now this one here had a lot of major differences between its releases. Obviously, first and foremost, this has unlimited continues, whereas the North American version only gives you 5 continues and that's it. Unless you do a specific code, and I can't believe that this is the method of doing it. You have to let the intro play 8 times and then do a specific command on your controller, and at that point you get 99 continues. Okay, I can't just go up, down, 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 left, B, A, start. You couldn't do that. I gotta watch the intro credits like 8 times. That's kind of dumb. Anyways, so I ended up playing through the Famicom version, and not only does the Famicom version give you unlimited continues, it has a freaking password system. Yeah, you can do image changes and put in a password so you continue your progress later. That's one of the things I really appreciate. So games like Ninja Gaiden, Bionic Commando, Blaster Master, they don't give you the option to pick up where you left off. You've got to, commit an afternoon or a day. If you really want to master that game or get into it, you really need to put the time in and just continue on. You don't get that with Ninja Gaiden 3. And again, that was from the whole era of we need to make this a rental thing. So like if kids rent this, they're not going to beat it. So not only had they taken out the unlimited continues and the password system, they added extra enemies in the NES version. They added extra damage to the NES version. And oh, like these floating bastards, like I kid you not, in stage 3, they kept knocking me off. And the knockback, I believe, is way worse on the NES version than it is the Famicom version. What's funny is that by the time I got to where I was in Ninja Gaiden 3 on Famicom, I was still on stage 3 of Ninja Gaiden 3. I was pulling my hair out because like I would get the rhythm down and then something would just come along and mess me up. By the time I was there, I was already up to stage 5. I was like, I might actually end up beating this. And you know what? The night I did the stream, I did it in the first night. And even with like the final bosses, like they don't take that much damage to kill. And I'm thinking in my head here, I'm like, what is going on? Like it took me until I got to the final boss to finally realize that something was off with the Famicom version. I thought for sure that I was just locking in, that I had to have infinite continuous in the password system. But then I didn't realize that, oh wait, no, I'm like actually like blowing through this. Like the enemies are not that hard. Oops. So at that point I was like, all right, let's play Ninja Gaiden 3 for real. I did the code to get the unlimited continues. I was still stuck on stage 3. I can't tell you how long it took me to get off of stage 3. That whole stream and that experience was a blur. But yeah, like if you ever wanted to see like farther into Ninja Gaiden and not have to worry about those continues, go check out the Famicom version and you probably might beat it in an afternoon. Next up is probably the conversion of one of my favorite Castlevania games of all time, maybe more so than the original. So this is Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse versus, forgive my pronunciation, I'm probably gonna butcher this, Akumajo Densetsu. Hope I said that right. But yeah, so retro enthusiasts will swear by that the Japanese version is far superior, mostly in sound because of the added sound chips that come with a Famicom card going into a classic Famicom versus what they did with Castlevania 3 on the NES. Now, I don't mind either one. I think both soundtracks and both sound effects sound great. But just to say one's better than the other, I give it to both. Like they're both fantastic. You can't go wrong in the sound department. Now for this one here, there are some major changes. So within Castlevania games, it's been tradition from 1 and 3 onward is that you take a certain amount of hits from enemies. Now you might encounter those same enemies in later levels, but you are going to take more damage because you're in the later levels. By the time you get to stage 8 or 9, before you even get to Dracula, you're taking 4 pips of hit each. So that means 4 hits complete, you're dead. But in this one, enemies do not scale up. So that same skeleton that's hopping around that takes 3 off of you, that same skeleton's going to take 3 off of you. In fact, it's even better when you get to the end. Like the Dracula fight is way more manageable. So instead of taking 4 hits to die, Simon, or sorry.
You're a phony! Hey, this guy's a great big phony! That's right.
I swear I love Castlevania. I didn't call him Simon. I meant to call him Trevor. It's Trevor Belmont. When you're fighting Dracula as Trevor, you actually only take 2 pips from either the fire, from him. So it makes that fight way more manageable. Because like he has 3 phases in that. He's got, you know, his regular phase. He's got his demonic faces phase, and then he's got his towering statue phase. So you actually have a fair shot at beating him at this. Now, one of the other changes I saw is that if you ever go for Grant, in the NES version, he has this tiny little dagger that he can only stab you with. That's the reason I never did Grant runs with him, is that his weapon sucked. I'm like, I'm either Sypha, Alucard, or just going Trevor solo on that. But in the Famicom version, his dagger just flies outward. So that's kind of cool. You've got a little projectile and you've got a way more manageable jump along with his wall climbing. So there's a big change there. Okay, and also too, one of the big things and the big contentions for this change is when you're in that final stage against Dracula, if you die in Dracula on Castlevania 3, the checkpoint is not at his staircase like every traditional Castlevania game. It takes you to the second to last checkpoint. So you still have to go to that area where there's the swinging clock pendulums to get to Dracula's castle. And in that point, these enemies are still hitting you for 4 pips. So you might, not even have full health when you get to Dracula. But at least in the Famicom version, if you die to Dracula and you don't game over, you'll still start off at Dracula Scares. It still sucks though that if you game over, it does take you back at the complete beginning of the level, so you have to do that whole sequence over again. But then again, like I said, you don't take full damage from enemies, so you're going to be just fine. So if you want an easier experience and a little different shift in soundtrack, maybe check out the Famicom version. Now, the cool thing of this is that you don't have to resort to emulation. Both of these versions are on the Castlevania Anniversary collections that are available on everything. So all you have to do, if you want the Japanese version, just scroll down to the bottom, select Japanese, boom, you're going to be playing the Japanese version of these games. And finally, it's probably one of the most popular platformers of all time. They made a goddamn movie around it to sell it more. It's Super Mario Bros. 3, or as it's known in Japan on the Famicom, Super Mario Bros. 3. Points for consistency. I think one of the major changes that you would see in the year since Japan had Mario 3 versus Mario Bros. 3 on NES is that they made the game a little bit easier in the West, because there are some spots there where the levels are a little bit easier. Not a whole lot of difference. I think one of the major differences you'll see is in the first fortress, there's the spikes that come down and you have to be careful. There's like extra areas to duck in, whereas in the Japanese version, there's not that much. Now, one of the major differences is that the Japanese version definitely is harder, is because they don't power scale down. So let's say in Mario 3, if you're Raccoon Mario, or if you have a suit like the Tanuki or the frog suit or the hammer suit, if you take a hit, you're still Big Mario. So you got an extra hit there. And then if you get hit again, then you revert down to Small Mario. But in this one, nah, the one hit you take, that automatically takes you down to Small Mario. Even if you have the Tanuki suit and the Karibo shoe, you take one hit, all that stuff goes flying off and you're back to Small Mario. And that's one of the things they kind of omitted from Mario 3, is that if you're in a suit, because I think you're going back to Big Mario, they don't have the little animation where the suit flies off with that weird sound. That's something that they would remedy though in Mario All-Stars on the Super Nintendo. It doesn't matter which version you're playing, you get hit, that suit comes flying off. The only other change I could see is that in World 5, instead of going straight to the end, there's a little pipe that separates the two. So there's a pipe that you would go in to get to the checkered card, and then there's an area that isn't there. I never knew why they programmed it like that, but I mean, it's there. If you want to do that shortcut, that's the only thing I can see there. The only other differences too is that going into Toad's houses is way faster. You don't have to wait for all the dialogue to finish. And the dialogue is faster just because it is in Japanese. So you can get there, you can get the chest, and you can get out of there quicker. Not a whole lot of changes there, but just something I always wanted to pick up. If you're ever curious about the full capacity of that, I did do a playthrough with my wife over on our gameplay channel. Actually, it's this channel here, unless it's on the other channel and I unlisted it. There should be a card right here if you want to go check that out. I did a full playthrough of that when we were Let's Players, and going over all the differences on real hardware, because I was collecting Famicom carts at that point. And if you want to check these out today, you can easily do that on the Nintendo Switch online. You can actually do both. So if you set up a separate account, the Switch is region free, but you can create a Japanese profile. Download the apps, and then you'll have all the Japanese versions of all the games that are on the system, even some special ones too. I believe they got Fire Emblem on there way before we got the English patch on there. So if you can read Japanese, you know, this is a great function. You know, check out some older titles legit on the Nintendo Switch. So that was 5 Famicom games that are different from their NES counterparts I think you guys should check out. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, again, like the video, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. No, leave a comment down below if there's some games that you think I left out. I do know that I want to do this in the future, and I do want to talk about the conversions of Dragon Quest to Dragon Warrior in the States, because there's quite a few, especially with the first and second games from Famicom to NES I'd really like to talk about. But thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Johnny Chase, and I got more games to play. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.